Evening, hello, welcome, another live stream. This time I've got my glasses on because my eyes are shot. Day in the dyno, really hot, looking at a laptop screen all day, and yeah, it makes it easier for me to see the comments that are coming up on the screen. So tonight's session, I'm going to go through some of the data logging side of things, and how I read the data logs and use the information I get from the data logs to make changes to the map. So if you've got any questions about what I'm doing, or unrelated, or anything else, put a Q at the beginning of your comment and I'll pick it up and hopefully be able to answer it. Today's session is going to be an hour tops. Lawrence, notice the bookshelf cover. Yes. I've got a few flags and banners and whatever for the workshop as well. But yeah, so data logging, really important. If you're self-tuning your car, it's absolutely essential. The data teaches you or shows you what you need to be changing. If you're trying to problem solve your car, then data logging will give you the answer. You just need to interpret it the right way, and some of that is less than obvious, but it is absolutely essential, because the ECU is seeing everything that's going on with all the sensors of the car, and rather than just spending money changing a load of sensors, it's really expensive to do that. If you can just get an ABD cable, data log it, you'd be able to figure out what's going on. Right, so I can see we've got some of the regulars in here: Kev, Tom, Stuart, Cullen, Zed, Lauren. If you're watching this for the first time, my name's Duncan. I map Subarus for a living. I've been mapping Subarus for 18 years now. It's all I do, apart from YouTube now. But you know, that's just me trying to share what I've learned over the years with you guys, and hopefully you can pick up some of the information that I'm trying to share with you. As I say, yeah, if you've got a question, put a Q at the beginning of it. Means I can pick it up and hopefully answer it. If you are here for the first time, then pop your name in and where you're from, what car you got, and it's really interesting to see whereabouts in the world everyone is. It's not just UK, it's America, Canada, Israel, Caribbean, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, all over the place. So yeah, it's quite wild as to where people are coming from. Obviously Europe as well: Spain, Portugal, France, Belgium. Yeah, quite mind-blowing. So anyway, yeah, data logging is important. I did a couple of videos on data logging and how I use it, but if I just go through a couple of examples. So this is a car that I mapped this week, just to show you the first data log and where I then took it with the changes to the map. Give you a flavour for what I'm data logging, what I'm reading from that data. And also a couple of the Academy members have sent in their data logs and their ROMs for me to go through and just try and pick up a couple of things for them. It's something I offer to the Academy members. We do a live stream for the Academy members, normally once a week, but sometimes there might be special videos or separate videos. You'd have seen them pop up on the YouTube page, which will say members only. Right. The north. Oh yeah, Scandinavia, Sweden, yes, and Norway as well. I think we have as well, and Iceland. I remember that one. Right. Okay. So if I cross to the map top, that should be ready. So right. Okay. I will come on to that a bit later on, Neil. Right, okay. This car, Hawkeye STI, came into me on Tuesday, and they'd had it mapped somewhere. I won't mention names, it's irrelevant, but they were complaining that it wasn't running how they wanted it to run. So it was like all the power, but then it kind of dropped off beyond 4,500. So I put it on the dyno, data logged, downloaded the ROM, data logged, and let me show you what the data logs were telling me or showing me. So if I go into right, so this is the data log. So this is the fields that I normally data log just as they start. So manifold pressure, wastegate duty, engine speed, advanced multiplier, throttle angle, air fuel correction 1, VBT angle left. Just to give me an overview of what's going on. I want this list to be as short as possible, because if you have too many fields that you're data logging, then the resolution becomes quite small because the ECU can only send out a certain amount of information. So try and keep it as small as possible, but also meaningful. So this was me sort of getting the car up to speed and whatever you on the dyno, but this bit here was an actual dyno pull. So if I zoom in on that, I'm using ECU edit software for the data logging. I use that for the ROM calibration changes, but you can see here it's building up boost, and then it just goes mad. So it's showing 2.501, but it was actually a lot more than that. Like the map sensor on the car, or the way the software works with it, will only read a maximum of 2.55. It was actually showing 1.8 bar of boost on a 2.5 standard bottom end. Obviously too much. So hence that was why it was getting the feeling that all the power was coming in straight away, but then the power was dropping off because it was screaming. The engine was detting really heavily, and yeah, wasn't good. If he'd have kept driving it like that, he would have had a rebuild again. He'd only just been in for head gaskets. So if he'd have kept putting his foot in, you can see that it's made some knock corrections there. It had heard the knock at that point. It would have been very difficult for it not to hear it. It was really loud. I stopped the run and made changes to the map. Right. Right. Okay, we've got a few questions there. So, yeah, so the first job for me was to get the boost under control. So it was irrelevant, all the rest of the information. So I want the boost under control. So taking the map, I won't go through the map that the other tuner did, but if I go into my first iteration of this map, you can see in the wastegate side of things, I put a limit in here of 0. So it will just do wastegate pressure. Put that map on there and then did another run. You'll see I kept my normal wastegate duty profile rather than zeroing all that out. Just zeroed it on this one field here, and that just kept it as a maximum. So let me show you what that run looked like. Okay, so this again was the run. So you can see now we go, okay, we got wastegate pressure all the way through here. So it's running 0.75 bar of boost. You'll notice on here that it says 1.78. That includes 1 bar of atmospheric air pressure. So, 0.78 bar of boost. That's what the actuator pressure is. So to me that says, right, okay, the turbo is controllable. There's not a split in the wastegate diaphragm. There's not a hole in the pipes to the boost solenoid. So it's controllable. And from that point onwards, I built up the wastegate duty. If I go to that screen, yeah, so I built up the wastegate duty sort of step by step, sort of using that one field. Right, yeah, using that one field just for the next map, just put that in at 10, so it will go to a maximum of 10% wastegate duty. The next map change, take it to 20, see whether it's still under control, see what the boost is going to be sort of for that sort of wastegate pressure, until eventually, if I just don't save that one, until eventually I come up with a maximum duty of 90%. If I make that bigger on the screen, you should be able to see it. So 90%, but the maximum duties are controlled by this table here. So this is the maximum wastegate duty. So the percentage of time that the wastegate is bleeding the air off rather than forcing the wastegate open. So as you can see here, 50% duty or 55% duty was enough to make what we did in the end, which was 1. This is the final map. So in the end, yeah, 1.41 bar of boost, nice and controlled, nice and smooth all the way through. And that was enough to make 375 horsepower, I think it was in the end. So any questions on that, far away. But using that single field to control the wastegate duty, just knocking it back to 0 to start with, was enough to make me confident that there was no mechanical reason why it was massively overboost. It was just a poor map, poor tune. Right, a couple of questions. Right, Neil, right, how's the Forester STI autopsy coming along? Autopsy done, lots of silicon in the oil pickup pipe, as well as a start of a crack on that, and that is the reason why that bottom end died. Building up the new engine on, well, starting on Friday, I think Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. Right, question from Luna. Most basic sensors do a checkup data log. I'm not understanding what you're meaning on that. It's probably a translation thing. If you can give me a bit more information as to what you're trying to ask there. All right. Right. Okay, if I go into that, if I put it onto the screen. Right, so on the last iron uphill with 1.4 bar, it still had feedback knock. Right, so if I go into where that is, so it heard something at this point here. So at 6,100 RPM, it heard something enough to make it sort of knock a degree out of it. I'm happy because at that stage I would have heard similar to what I put in the last video, like the detonation recording. But I'm happy if I hear that and the ECU is making some corrections, that's as high as it will get. So at that point, the actual map that the car goes out in or goes out with is probably 2.5 degrees below that ignition timing, so I'll drop the ignition timing down. So good spot. You can see there as well, we're kind of at the limit of what the standard injectors will cope with at that horsepower. Right. Question from Robin. Please tell us why bigger intake makes the car stumble at higher revs. That's not something I've seen. I'll be interested to see that in a data log. Just log in the normal bits that I'm logging on that particular car, because it shouldn't do, unless you're getting like surge on the turbo and it's sort of pulsating the induction pipe work. It certainly shouldn't do. Right. Oil consumption issue seems to have gone away with the swap back to the blow off valve. Okay, very weird. Right. Okay, so data logging, they're the standard sort of fields. If you're getting some weird issues, then you might need to data log other fields as well. But there's some fields that are worth data logging and some that are a complete waste of time. If it's not giving you any meaningful data in your data logs, then don't data log it because it's slowing everything else down. Okay. As an aside, if you're trying to control the wastegate duty on an ECU ROM that hasn't got that single field to set a maximum, then the easiest way to do it, if I grab a standard file, right. Right, let me show you this. If you're just trying to lower the boost down to wastegate pressure, so rather than going through and changing all the wastegate duty tables, you can see this one was like all the boost. You can do it using like one of the compensation fields, so kind of make that -100, and that will make it just run wastegate pressure. Callan, yeah, I think that'd be worthwhile. Upload it into the Discord group in the review my logs bit. Right, let's get rid of that. Right. Okay, so how do you actually set the max boost, with wastegate duty only, or is it target boost or something? Right, let me go into that one. So that particular Hawkeye STI, you can see there I've got a target boost of 1.45. So that's what I'm targeting. The wastegate duty, because I'm doing a pull in 4th gear on the dyno on that particular car, it's getting to just under that 1.45, but the maximum wastegate duty is controlling it. So in 5th gear, it would make 1.45, and the actual wastegate duty would be slightly less than the maximum. So set the target and then sort of set the wastegate pressure to kind of be around the right sort of region to get you to the target pressure. If you put a wastegate duty maximum of 10, then your maximum boost that you'll get out of that will be quite low. So you could set the target boost at 2 bar, it would make no difference. But if you set the target boost really low, then you might get some sort of jumping around of the actual boost. So while you're just building it up, set the wastegate or the target boost to what you want the target to boost. No, words aren't working. Set the target boost to what you want it to be eventually, and then just gradually release it by upping the wastegate duty, and it will get you to where you want it to be. Boom, boom, boom. Cool, right. Okay. Ignition advanced multiplier values dropping without any feedback learning not correction, or feedback correction or fine learning not correction. Yeah, sometimes happens. It's got the 3 mechanisms. It's got the rough correction, so movements in the advanced multiplier. It's got the feedback correction, so instantaneous, and it's also got fine learning. In my experience, it will pick whichever of those 3 that it needs to control itself, or to control the detonation. Sometimes if it's something major, then it will just drop the advanced multiplier without seeing any feedback knock at all. Quite weird, but different ECUs do different things, which is why I don't like to rely on them to protect it. Map it properly so that it's not detting, and then take a bit of safety margin out of it, and then if it's making any changes like that, then it could, for an advanced multiplier change, it could just be a noise in the engine bay. So making the deck cans is quite useful to actually hear some of the other things that could be going on in there, like heat shields rattling. They tend to make big changes to advanced multipliers, and even put the car into limp modes. Yeah, it can be bad fuel for that, but it could just be detonation through running lean, bad fuel, too much boost, too much heat, lots of different things. Sometimes it will drop the advanced multiplier. Sometimes it will use feedback not correction, and sometimes it will just go straight to fine learning without any of the others. It is quite weird. So you need to data log all 3 of those things. Okay. Right, any more questions on that or any other things? Right, okay, we're up to date. Right, so let me go through one of the Academy members, one of his. Right. So this is Caleb's Forester STI. In the country that he's in, there is only 95 on fuel, so he's having to detune it to make it safe. The boost that he's trying to do is just pretty much wastegate pressure and a little bit, but trying to make it run as nice as he can and as safe as he can, before eventually I guess he's going to build the power up a bit. So this is his map. So at the moment we got sort of target boost at 0.7 bar, so it's kind of wastegate pressure. But given the fuel that he's got with the 2.5 JDM engine, it's a case of he wants to run it as safe as he possibly can. So yeah, detuned from the standard sort of 1 bar of boost, but 95 RON is really not very nice fuel for Subarus. So just looking at his data log for this run, we're just seeing like a full throttle run all the way through. Not logging a vast amount of fields here. I'd have liked to seen the fine learning and the advanced multiplier as well, because they're the 3 elements of knot correction. Hopefully the ignition timing that it's showing on here is what the base ignition timing and the knot correction values added together. But if you had the feedback, the fine learning and the advanced multiplier data logged, then it would be a lot more useful. Again, we're using the standard air fuel ratio sensor on the car, which is not incredibly accurate, but for that sort of boost level we're seeing sort of 11.9, 11.8, and then dropping down a bit more at the top end down to 11.4, 11.5. It's fine. I've seen the map, the ignition timing, it should be absolutely safe. It doesn't appear to be detting. Caleb's got deck cans on there, so he's listening for detonation, and this looks absolutely fine in my eyes. So we've got an airflow. The airflow curve generally represents or is the same sort of shape as the power curve, and what I've seen over the years is that the mass airflow grams per second roughly equates to power at the wheels. So at this one we're seeing like 224 maximum mass airflow, so around 285, 290 horsepower, so about standard power, but because he's tuned it for slightly leaner than the factory tune, maybe able to get a little bit more power from that. Obviously compensating for the lower quality fuel, the ignition time is quite low, so it might not be around that 290, but I think he's going to put it on the dyno soon, so we will see. Yeah, to me the data log, there needs to be more fields on there. It's not showing enough information. It's not showing the advanced multiplier. It's not showing the fine learning. We got the relative pressure. It's better in my mind, or in my experience, to use the absolute pressure, because the relative pressure tends to be capped off in the data logging quite low, but you won't be experiencing that at the moment, running sort of pretty much wastegate pressure. Nothing more I can say on that really. Engine load roughly equates to torque, pounds per foot. So 2.4 load, roughly 240 pounds per foot of torque at the wheels. So again, sort of 310-ish, depending on whether the fueling and the ignition time is right. Right. Okay, yeah, that's the only thing I'd say on this. I want more fields, more data. And you know, I've gone through the map in a previous session in the Race My ROM in the academy, and you know, it looks fine. It looks sensible. It looks, yeah, it looks perfectly manageable. And if there's no debt, there's no debt. Right. Okay, let's go back to big screen me. Right, nice question first. Right, is there a big difference on ignition timing on 97 RON versus 99? And is it usually the same from car to car? There is a big difference. On a normal Subaru engine, you're probably talking about maybe 2.5, 3 degrees of ignition timing difference. So if you've mapped your car on 99 and you're running it on 97, you're sort of 3 degrees into detonation. So you're relying very heavily on the ECU to go, oh, there's detonation, I'll take out 3 degrees. But when you do that, it doesn't do it smoothly. It does it sort of jerky all over the place. It will make changes that are fairly random and fairly crude. So it won't be a smooth drive. So mapping it on 97, if you're going to run it on 97, would be a better option. That difference is not the same car to car. If you've got a higher compression engine, it's going to make a much bigger difference between 97 RON and 99. On a Legacy GT, for example, with 9.5 compression, putting lower quality fuel in there, you miles off an ignition time, and you're really heavily into areas where it could detonate badly. Deck cans, if you think there's a problem, deck cans are brilliant for actually identifying it. Even if it's a problem with noises elsewhere on the car, you can just bolt them to something near where your noise is, route it through the car somehow, and they're perfect for identifying what the noises are. But 97 to 99 is a big difference. Right, how accurate are the dyno figures in ECU edit? Not accurate at all in my experience. ECU Tech, their road dyno software, I know I used to use it quite a lot for comparing when I was just mapping on the road, for comparing sort of changes that I make to see what difference it would make to the actual power. But unless you're compensating for the level of fuel, i.e. the weight of the vehicle, unless you're on an absolutely flat road with no wind, I think they're rubbish. They're not very useful. Right, good question, Stuart. Right, how do I read the deck cans while driving? There's a video coming up soon on that, but I'll tell you now. So I bolt them. Like UK, we're driving on the left hand side. Car steering wheel is on the right hand side. So I'm bolting to the mount on the inlet manifold that the intercooler bolts to, running the hose up under the scuttle tray at the back of the bonnet, or the hood, or whatever you want to call it in your part of the world, and then round through the passenger window, obviously wind that down a bit, and then across into the car. So the hose is long enough for it to sit in my lap while I'm driving, and then just put one ear on, or one ear with the other ear folded forward or backwards, so that I can drive while I'm wearing them. If you make the hose long enough and flexible enough, and sort of put them into the deck cans where I do in my example rather than in the side, it's a lot easier. Right, Ankit Thakur. Right, hi Duncan. Is low RPM fine knock correction of 1.41 to 2.4 acceptable? Right, it depends. If it's just low RPM, sort of 2000 RPM, offload, no boost, then that's just the noise generally that it's picking up there. You can change the ranges that the ECU is listening for. So if it's a common thing that you're getting a vibration at around 2000 RPM, just cruising along, it's not that. Just change the values in the knock correction side of things, so it's not listening for det until it's on a proper load or a slightly higher RPM. I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I go back to the map top screen, right, so in the knock control, there's various fields that you can look for. So feedback knock correction, if you're finding that you're getting some feedback correction at the low end of the rev range, off boost, just cruising, is just picking up a vibration, maybe a clutch plate or a flywheel or a gearbox or something. You could take those two values there and take them up 2300, 2400, and then the ECU is not going to make any feedback knock correction until it gets above that. You could also do the same with the rough correction, so changes to the advanced multiplier. So on this one I've already done that, so 2400 to 2500. You could also do the same for the fine learning correction, so take both of those values and bump them up a bit. But I would tend to do the feedback knock correction one first, but so long as it's off load and just cruising. If it's on load, then it might be detonation. Until you get some det cans on there, it's difficult to tell. Can ECU edit read and write ROM to an auto 05 FXT turbo? Yes, no problem at all. On those, 05 is kind of like a crossover year. Wrong button again. The 05 is kind of like a crossover year, so it might be a 32-bit file, it might be a 32-bit big file like the 1 meg file, or it might be CAN bus. So you need to experiment as to which one of those will read it, but I've done loads of those. An ECU edit reads them absolutely fine. Okay, on the 19 STI there's a bottom corner trim that pops out and the hose goes through there and in through the window almost all the way up. Yeah, it is. The hose that I use kind of fits in the side of the hinge and that panel, so you don't have to pop it out. But yeah, doing whatever works. I did on some cars figured out a way of getting it through the floor well, and in that way, and I think that was on a couple of cars where the actual windows didn't wind down, so it was on Perspex windows. Yeah, 05 Hawkeye STI, the hose will fit under the scuttle tray with the back of the bonnet hood, round through the passenger window, and it's easy. Right, 2007 WRX Impressor is run on standard map and says to use 95 octane. Oh, I hate that they told people to run 95 octane on there. Will I do damage if you run it on 99? No, you will not, or 97, but it will eventually cause damage running it on 95. Run it on 95 if you can afford, run it on 99 if you can afford that, then your engine will thank you for it. The valve seats tend to burn out on 95, and particularly, you know, people that put LPG conversions on Subaru engines, they're horrific. If you ever pull one of those apart, they're horrible. So yeah, fine to run 99, always fine to run a better fuel than what it's mapped for. And even if you're not changing the map, then, you know, just every now and again treat it to a tank of nice fuel. Yeah, yeah, a few of you have to run on 95. Yeah, methanol, octane boosters, ethanol. There are ways to bump up the octane level. It's a Subaru engine. It's designed to run on Japanese fuel, which is like 100 odd octane. So anything below that is kind of compromising it. And 95 run on some of the high compression engines, like the Legacy GT engine, like 9.5 to 1. Running that on 95, you have to take so much ignition timing out that it gets to the stage where it's really hesitant when you're accelerating. Yeah, octane boosters. The problem with octane boosters is if you map to have the octane booster in there, you're pretty much wedded to using it all the time. If you map to run without it and you just put in the octane booster in just for an extra bit of safety, then it's a better option. Unless you're running methanol, like a percentage of methanol, like 5%, 10%, 20%, in which case you can tune for it. But most of the magic bottles of snake oil stuff don't really do an awful lot, in my opinion. But I am going to do a test at some point when I've got a car with a working engine that I can strap on the dyno and do that. I will do an octane tester test, just to see whether like 10% methanol is better than Miller's octane boost or whatever the other brands are available. Right, where are we there? Yeah, yeah, I did a video on that everyone got really bored of and hardly watched, but 91 in the USA is about equivalent to our 95 here. 93 in the USA is about equivalent to our 99. It's because you use an average of the MON and the RON value, AKI, I think you call it. Can't remember for the life of me what that AKI, something anti-knock index, whereas we run our fuel is labelled as RON, but you know, octane is a different thing altogether. There's various tests that anyway, yeah, watch the video if you want to watch that and get to sleep at night. Yeah, they are easier. The bottles of octane booster are easier to get hold of. They're quite expensive, certainly a lot more expensive than methanol. Methanol is roughly equivalent to the same price, or the same price as petrol per volume that you're using. I would rather run methanol than an octane booster, but I will be doing a video soon. When the Forester's back up and running, maybe, but probably more likely the Blitzen engine when that's in and running. Right, hello. Right, yeah, it was yeah. Watch it again. Yeah, it's if you have trouble sleeping, everyone thinks like UK fuel 99 run, 99 octane. US have only got 93, and they're not comparing apples with apples, so it's difficult. Right, Miguel Bast. Right, you're having what is a good map and best way on a Link G4X. You're having problems with cold start. Miguel, message me if you download the Link software and TeamViewer. I can remotely access it when the car's cold, and we can see exactly what's going on. It's probably the easiest way, to be honest. Right. Any other questions on that? Right. Okay, let's close that down. Go back to the map top and go into Dill's Forester XT. So I think if I'm right, Dill was having some queries to do with the fueling while it was idling, and saying that it was leaning out. So if I look at his data log, so again he's logging a fair amount of fields there. So air fuel learning, advanced multiplier, feedback knock, air fuel correction, load, boost. Fair few things. There's a few of those that I would get rid of because they're not actually telling you anything useful. Things like learned ignition time, waste of time. It's not actually showing any meaningful values. It's just taking up valuable data. So I would get rid of that. Also, these two fields at the bottom are showing the exact same thing, so get rid of either or the other. But anyway, that's by the by. But that will give you more data points to actually be able to problem solve a bit better. But what I'm seeing on here is two sections when the car was running, just idling. So this section here is one section while it's started up, idling smoothly. And then this section here, which is a little bit later on. So just looking at that data, so when you're starting it, it's taking out a little bit of fuel and then gradually learning it back up. Entirely normal, to be honest. It would be interesting to see in the data if you could log fuel pump duty, because when you start the car up, the fuel pump will start at 100% and then drop down to 66, 33, and at that stage the fueling is more stable. It could be that is happening around one of those transition points. It might be useful to actually look at that. Mass airflow is steady. Bum, bum, bum. Revs are steady. So in this initial part, this is the narrow band sensor on the car rather than a wide band sensor, so not always accurate. So it starts off rich with the 100% pump duty, I would imagine, and then it kind of stabilizes itself out as the ECU is making corrections to bring the fueling back up to where it wants to be, and it will just kind of stabilize along there, and I'm not seeing any changes to the fueling that would make me worry. Like 1% out. It's going up and down by 0.78. I'm not seeing anything there that's making me say there's a problem or an issue. I'd say data log what's going on there with the fuel pump duty. Right, at this point here, if I get me out of the way, I'm blocking that off. If you data log the fuel pump duty, you'll be able to see whether that's just the 100% wastegate duty that is causing that. Takes a while for the air fuel sensor to warm up. So until this point, it's not actually producing a proper value. It's probably going to be starting up around that 12 AFR anyway. Bum, bum, bum. Right. So I think that's all that's going on there is just the normal mechanism for fuel pump duty. You're pushing more fuel pressure into the rails, so it's going to run richer because you know the fuel's under higher pressure. As the fuel pump duty drops, it will lean itself out and run normally. That looks perfect to me. If it's within 1, 2, 3, even 5%, you'll see the variations, and there's not a problem there for me. Right, let's go back to this. We've got a few minutes of questions if we've got any questions. Right. Right. Okay, question here. How would I make the car idle at a richer or leaner air fuel ratio? Right. Let me show you. It's probably easier to show you than tell you. There is an idle air fuel target. Bum, bum, bum. Right. Right, if I go into this one, it's probably easiest. I don't know what car you've got, Lena. Boom, 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 boom. Right, so there's load, target compensation. I can't find it. Okay, that worked well, didn't it? There is a target AFR for idle. I'll dig it out. I'll do a video on it. So you're targeting rather than 14.7, so you put that in as 14.4 or 14.1 or 15, and try and make it idle at that. Lambda for petrol is 14.7, so really that is what you should be idling at. Most MOTs or emissions tests around the world will target that sort of air fuel ratio. Yeah, so I'll find the fields and I'll do a little video on it. I think that's probably the best way. Right, question from Caleb, have you ever measured wide open throttle EGTs against AFR and timing? Yeah, they do weird things. The EGTs go high when you run it rich. EGTs go high when you run it lean. EGTs come down when you are running it just at the right right air fuel ratio. Ignition timing too much and the EGT will go high. Too little and the EGT will go high. So yeah, it's a balancing act all the time with that. Right, Victor de Carvalho. Right, I'm presuming is that a Brazilian name? 2002 JDM STI. Dual maps, how to change between the maps. Right, depends what people have used to set up dual maps. There isn't dual maps as standard. If they've used Carberry, then they would have set up a separate input for map switching. Flat foot shift with mechanical throttle possible, yes. Using a clutch switch input, again you would need to be running Carberry on that, just to give you that option, or aftermarket ECU. Yeah, Carberry ROM is probably your cheapest option. Aftermarket ECU is your better option. So something like a Link or a Cyvex or a Haltech or many others. Yeah, it is as fun as a 4-port electronic boost control solenoid. They're fun. Right, okay, I think we're done with this. I hope you found that useful. If you got any questions, pop it in the comments below or join the Academy. There'll be a join button below here. The Academy is not me teaching you how to map, it's just kind of me holding your hand and pointing in the right direction, giving you a pat on the back when you're doing it right, maybe steering you a little bit of a different direction if you're slightly misguided or potentially going to be wasting a lot of time. Have a look at it. If you want to join, then I'm sure some of the guys on here will tell you what I do in there and what the videos are. We've got a good crowd in there now, so it's fun. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.